Starting off this countdown, we have the Adidas shoes. Now, this is a famous case of supposed time travel. A couple of years ago, an ancient mummy was unearthed in Mongolia. Nothing was too off about the mummy, besides the fact that she wore shoes that looked like Adidas trainers. The shoes had red and black stripes on it. I personally don't see the resemblance with the shoes, but others are convinced that this body belongs to a time traveler. Upon analyzing the body further, they found that it belonged to a woman who died from a blow to the head. It's theorized that this woman may have indeed have been a time traveler and was killed after her identity was leaked. What else could explain the fact that this woman was found wearing Adidas? Just a little tip, if you're going time traveling, don't wear Nike or Adidas. Moving on to number 9, we have The Fight. A video of Mike Tyson's fight from 1995 went viral online for containing supposed proof of a time traveler. In the background of the video, you can see a man who appears to be recording or taking photos of the fight on an iPhone or another modern camera phone. The fight was in 1995 and camera phones were not sold until the 2000s. As a result, many people are convinced that the man in the audience is a time traveler, who I guess is a fan of Mike Tyson. What also tripped people out is the fact that the main cameras used in the 90s were the ones with the lenses in the middle. This camera is clearly lacking that. However, others believe that the man is not a time traveler and in fact was just taking a photo on a camera known as the Casio QV10A. Even though it's been potentially debunked, there are people out there that don't believe it for a second. In our 8th spot, we have the Mohawk Man. It's like, where's Waldo with these photos? Except you're looking for the person that doesn't belong. So this next image is apparently from 1905 and shows workers and a banana boat delivering goods. However, near the boat there appears to be someone standing there in a white t-shirt rocking a Mohawk style haircut, which is a very unusual haircut for that time period. The men in the photo are wearing suits and top hats and have fancy mustaches and look well dressed, whereas he's there in a plain t-shirt. Due to the fact that he looks out of place, people have pegged him as a time traveler. He kinda reminds me of Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver though. In our 7th spot, we have the Hipster, another very popular photo that has been circulating online. So the photo contains a crowd of people in the 1940s at the reopening ceremony for the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia. Well, in this photo, everyone seems to be dressed up besides the man on the right hand side of the photo. Everyone else is in suits and top hats, and this tall man seems to be very out of place dressed like a hipster, hence why he was given that name. He can be seen sporting funky sunglasses, a graphic t-shirt, and of course is carrying a camera. Now, some believe that he is indeed a time traveler, whereas others have tried to debunk it. They claim that all the items he is seen wearing were available back in 1941 when the photo was taken. Either way, he looks pretty out of place. In our 6th spot, we have Greta Thunberg. I'm sure all of you have heard about Greta Thunberg, the young Swedish activist who is spreading the word about climate change. Well, there's a theory out there that Greta is actually a time traveler. This theory came to life after a photo of 3 children was uploaded to the internet. These children appeared to be at a gold mine on Dominion Creek in the Yukon. However, the one girl looks identical to Greta and is even wearing the same braided hairstyle. As a result, people believe that Greta is a time traveler sent from the future to save humanity before we completely destroy it. And then apparently she traveled back to 1898 to the Yukon before coming to the present moment. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the fence legend. So this one is more of a legend, but either way it makes for a good time traveling story. So legend goes that there was a 30-year-old man named Rudolph Fentz who was hit and injured by a New York taxi in the 1950s. His pockets contained a copper token for beer, a bill for the care of a horse, and a letter from 1876 among other unusual items. Turns out that this man was a person who disappeared in 1876 at the age of 29. Like I mentioned before, this is apparently a legend that originated from a 1951 short story book, but others believe that this is actually a cover-up, and that Rudolph Fentz was a real man who was a time traveler. Making our way down the list at number 4, we have the beach time traveler. What's something you would do if you could time travel? Maybe stop a tragedy from happening, save someone's life, or just chill at the beach getting some rays. Because That last one is exactly what this time traveler did. A photo from September 1943 apparently shows British factory workers enjoying their break on the beach during the midst of wartime. Everyone is seen wearing bathing suits that fit the era. But right in the middle of the photo is a man in a brown suit, who honestly looks like Mr. Bean. This dude is also checking something that looks like a phone. Some even say that he's checking his time travel device. People were really weirded out about this man because he sticks out like a sore thumb. As a result, he has been deemed a time traveler. Coming in our third spot, we have the film extra. In this next situation, a woman time traveled to be an extra in a Charlie Chaplin film. Or so it appears that way. In the 1928 film, a woman who appears to be taking a phone call can be seen crossing the screen. The video was in the behind the scenes footage from Chaplin's film, The Circus. The woman is in a long black coat and is holding something to her ear, which she is speaking into. Of course, in 1928 there were no cell phones, so how is this possible? 2 words: time travel. However, others believe that she is simply holding a hearing device to her ear, or that she's holding up her hand to shield her eyes from the sun. But that still doesn't explain why she appears to be talking to herself and holding the black rectangular object like a cell phone. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this one. In our second spot, we have the Canadian man. Now, this photo is pretty odd. The photo is over 100 years old and shows a bunch of dressed up Canadians chilling on a hill. Another Canadian time traveler. At first glance, everything appears to be normal, until you take a closer look. On the left side of the photo, there's a man on the hill that seems out of place. I mean, the men are dressed up in top hats and suits, and he's just chilling there in a t-shirt and shorts. In fact, the 2 men beside him are giving him a look like, who's this guy? As a result, people have referred to him as the surfing time traveler. Like seriously, he seems so out of place. But also, why would you choose that as your time traveling outfit? Like I'd pick something cool, like a leather jacket, you know, look all cool and edgy. And in our number 1 spot, we have the cell phone. Another time traveler caught using a cell phone. So if you're gonna go back in time, don't bring your phone. A film from 1938 shows a woman talking on a device that looks just like a cell phone. Again, how is that possible when the first mobile phone wasn't available to buy until around the 80s? After this video made headlines, a YouTube user came forward claiming that the lady in the video was her great-grandmother. She apparently asked her grandmother, whose name is Gertrude Smith, about the video, and she said that she really was using a cell phone. Apparently, the phones were a prototype developed by a communications factory in Massachusetts. Gertrude and 5 other women were given the phones to test out for a week. But it's still hard to believe that this company was way ahead of the times. When mobile phones were ready, they were big, not the small ones that fit comfortably in your hand as seen in the video. So it really does make us wonder, what's real and what's not? Honestly, it seems hard to believe, and Gertrude Smith seems like a made-up name. And it was never even confirmed if what this user said was true. So it may just be that time travel is real and Gertrude was not too sly and got caught in action. Starting off this countdown, we have the World Cup. During the 1962 FIFA World Cup, somebody captured a photo of the Brazilian team celebrating as they lift their trophy. But the photo captured more than just that. Towards the bottom of the photo, there's a man who appears to be taking a picture using a flip-style cell phone. Obviously, flip phones weren't a thing back then, so this has led people to believe that this guy is a time traveler, and obviously a fan of soccer. As a soccer player, I respect that. Now, it's quite weird that this time traveler would have a flip phone with them. Like, out of all devices, they chose to bring a flip phone back in time with them. On the other hand, people believe that the phone is actually just a film camera held at a weird angle, but who knows? In our 9th spot, we have Nicolas Cage. Okay, some of you may know this, I know the true fans will, but I love Nicolas Cage. National Treasures, great movie, don't come at me. Well, Nicolas Cage is theorized to be a time traveler. That's right. He's the face of a meme, an actor, America's national treasure, and even a time traveler. What a great thing to be able to write on your resume. There's a photo of a man from the 19th century that looks pretty identical to this Academy Award winning actor. The photo was taken in 1870 and features a Tennessee man dressed in a snazzy outfit. The photo was found in the back of an album of death portraits. And this photo could be yours for $1 million. Seriously, that's how much it's listed for. But anyways, this photo might just prove that Nick Cage is a time traveler. In our 8th spot, we have the brass bell. In 1944, a 10-year-old boy by the name of Newton Anderson was shoveling coal into his furnace at his home when a piece of coal was dropped and broke in half. Inside the coal revealed a mysterious bell. Keep in mind that the coal was found to be 300 million years old. Back then, the dominant life form on Earth were insects. Not only that, but studies on the bell revealed that it was handmade. So it's physically impossible for a bell like that to have been manufactured back then. So this has led people to believe that a time traveler went back in time to that time period and dropped their bell while doing so. But who the heck carries a bell with them when they're going back in time? Like, that's not something that would be in my suitcase. Now, of course, people were skeptical. They thought that the boy lied and didn't find the bell in the coal. But he underwent a polygraph test conducted by a specialist who worked on death row cases. It was discovered that he was indeed telling the truth. So now the question is, who was the time traveler that dropped this on their mission? And what is the significance behind the bell? Moving on to number 7, we have the toothed wheel. A Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he realized something odd sticking out of it. Researchers stated that it looked like a toothed wheel. Testing of this object revealed that it was 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. What's weird is humans didn't learn to make aluminum until 1825. But this coal piece is 300 million years old. And the tooth object appears to be artificially made. Again, how did a man-made object find its way in a 300 million year old piece of coal? Not only that, but the object resembles parts that are used in things like microscopes or electronic devices. Or maybe time machines. It could be that a time traveler went back to that time period and then a piece broke off of his time traveling device or something. In our 6th spot, we have the skater boy. Skateboarding was an activity that became increasingly popular during the mid-70s. But here's the thing. There's a photo of a well-dressed man boarding through New York's Central Park. The photo was taken back in the 1960s, when very few people were out skateboarding. In fact, it was very rare to see people skateboarding before the 70s because it was not a popular activity at all. And even when it did become popular, it took years before it was embraced as a real sport. So then, who is this man in a suit that is riding a board? He looks super out of place. This has led people to believe that he is a time traveler from the future that clearly likes skateboarding as his method of transportation. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with John Titor. John Titor is a supposed time traveler from the year 2036 on a military mission. He first made his appearance on the internet in the 2000s on online forums. He would post about predictions or share stories from the future. The reason for him traveling back in time is so that he can get an IBM 5100, which apparently had a secret function that could translate anything to any language. I have no clue why he needed it, but he did. On the forums, John also posted grainy photos of the time machine and of the military logo from the future. In 2001, John disappeared from online and was never heard from again. So some people believe that he is a real time traveler. Maybe he made it back home, or maybe something else happened to him. In our 4th spot, we have Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, sculptor, inventor, engineer, and architect during the Renaissance. However, he's probably most famous for his painting, the Mona Lisa. Well, believe it or not, but da Vinci is thought to be a time traveler. Hear me out, okay? Leonardo da Vinci was often considered way ahead of his time. Well, maybe this is quite literally, since he's thought to have come from the future. One theory is that he went back in time to steal others' accomplishments or to help advance the world. This dude was a genius. He knew more things than anyone else did in that time period. For example, Da Vinci drew pictures of a helicopter in 1493. That's around 450 years before an actual helicopter was created. But not only that, he had the idea for an armored fighting vehicle, aka tanks. And he also invented the idea of a submarine. He talked about ships that could travel underwater and even sketched designs of them. So Da Vinci somehow came up with all of these modern day inventions and more. How? Because he's a time traveler. Making our way down the list at number 3, we have the self-proclaimed traveler. Over the years, a number of people have come forward claiming that they are time travelers from the future, which is the case for this next man. A couple of years ago, an older Greek man came forward saying that he traveled in time to the year 3207. Of course, during his interview, he had his identity hidden for safety reasons. His face was blurred out and his voice was distorted. Now, he claims that he was shot forward in time and spent 2 days in the year 3207 as part of a top secret military program. He claims that in the future the buildings were massive, triple the size that they are today. He also says that there were flying cars and that there was strange colored grass. It wasn't green, but he said it was a deep purple. And lastly, he says that aliens, humans, big animals, and robots all were walking together down the street. And that seems like a pretty crazy future. And why is the grass purple? Like, what kind of environmental mutation happened there? I don't even want to know. Coming in at number 2, we have Paul Dinick. In 1921, a man named Paul Dinick, a Swiss-Australian teacher, slipped into a coma for about a year. For that year, he claimed that he went to the year 3096, where he switched consciousness with a man named Andrew Northman. 1 minute, he was in a coma. Next, he's inside Andrew's body speaking a foreign language. For that year, he was living as Andrew. Friends of Andrew even noticed his personality changed. Paul was so scared to tell anyone of his experience, so he wrote it in his diary and kept it a secret. However, just before he passed away, he gave his diary to one of his students to translate. And that's when it was revealed that he had somehow time traveled to the future. And in our number 1 spot, we have Donald Trump. This has to be one of the creepiest theories out there. So, theory goes that Donald Trump and his son Barron Trump are both time travelers from the future. Theory goes that Trump traveled back in time to become the ruler of America. Now, here's the thing. These theories arise after someone discovered 2 books on the Office of Congress Library website. The books are called Barron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey and 1900 or The Last President. Both were written in the 1890s by Ingersoll Lockwood. The book Barron Trump is about a young boy who finds a secret portal and time travels. Both books have eerie connections to Donald Trump and his family. First off, the book is called Barron Trump, and Barron Trump is the name of Donald Trump's son. There are way more freaky coincidences though, like how at one point in the book he was guided by a man named Don, aka Donald Trump. And then in the book The Last President, it's about an unlikely presidential candidate that won the election. Sound familiar? Even freakier, the book talks about the Fifth Avenue Hotel, and the address of the hotel in the book is the exact address where Trump's tower currently stands. Hold on, it gets creepier. In the book, there is a character named Laugh Pence, who is the Secretary of Agriculture. Come on, like hello, the Vice President's name is Mike Pence. There's just too many similarities between the books and Donald Trump's life, so people believe that this book was actually written about Trump and his family.
Starting us off at number 10 is the underwater city. Last year, a man choosing to identify as Edward came out and said he was part of a top secret experiment that took place in 2004 in LA, which allowed him to somehow be able to travel through time. He said during the experiment he traveled 3,000 years into the future and found himself in an unrecognizable city, or so he thought. He said he was stood on a huge wooden platform, but it wasn't just him. Everything was made of wood. The buildings, the houses, absolutely everything. When he looked around more clearly, he realized he was still in LA but underwater. Edward claims that humans become forced to live underwater after all the ice caps melted due to global warming. Well, nearly 70% of the Earth's water is locked in ice caps and glaciers, so if all that melted, it is plausible. But what's not plausible is humans as a species evolving to survive underwater in the short span of 3,000 years. Either way, he also had photographic evidence of this underwater LA in the video, which I mean, is it Photoshop? Is it not? I don't really know. Coming in at number 9 is the radio announcer. So this one is a bit of Inception because this one took place in 1945, which is now the past, but the man speaking was from the future, but the future he's talking about is technically our present. But anyway, back in 1945, a British radio host garnered a lot of attention when he made predictions for the next 100 years. So he predicted life till 2045, and since we're in 2019 right now, we now know that a lot of his predictions actually came true. So much so that many believe his predictions were only this accurate because he was either from the future or someone he knew was. Here are his predictions. Man will set foot on celestial bodies like the moon and Mars. Half correct. Big companies will no longer have a monopoly on news and entertainment, and people will be able to access it anywhere. 100% correct. TV sets will get smaller and smaller to the point they can fit on our wristwatches. I mean, we can watch shows on our phones but not our watches yet, so I guess half accurate. He also said cameras will be at every street corner for safety, but it'll soon diminish our freedom, which I'd say is 100% accurate. He also made some other predictions that haven't come true yet, but I mean, we still have 26 years to make them happen, so here's to hoping. At number 8 we have harmonious living. Back in 2017, an anonymous Greek man claimed he was sent to the year 3207 as part of a top secret Greek military experiment. He asked more about the experiment, but his question was denied and he was told no one was allowed to ask any questions. That's usually how these things go. He accepted their proposal because he was promised a better job afterwards and $100,000, yet when he realized the gadget they were going to use had only been used in theory, he tried to back out, and they wouldn't let him. They said he had 11 minutes to be in 3207 or he'd get arrested. When he woke up in the future, he said the buildings he saw were gigantic. He described it as 5 or 6 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. Cars were flying, grass wasn't green, it was a deep purple color, but the strangest thing was the people. He saw humans walking with aliens, walking with massive animals, humans that had unnatural looking skin, robots, and everyone was just living harmoniously. He even saw a family of aliens play with a huge dog in their garden, and I know it's hard to believe, as does this man. He was like, I could barely believe it myself, so I don't expect you guys to believe it either. He said there were massive generators surrounded by neon blue light, and he figured that they were energy producing because all the flying cars were surrounded by the same light. See, this is the kind of future I can get behind. Filling our number 7 slot are better decisions. So Apex TV uploaded a video back in 2017 featuring a man claiming to have come from the year 2250. The man said he was born in 2215, and in 2250 he traveled back to the year 2017 to help us make better decisions for a better future. See, I told you this list was a mixed bag. But he says by 2050 there'll be a massive global food shortage because of overpopulation, which I totally believe. It's completely plausible. By 2098 he says rising sea levels will displace millions of people because of the overpopulation and less land available to live on, and he recommends self-sustaining underwater cities as a solution, which actually is in line with what Edward said earlier. He says by 2168 microbial life will be confirmed to exist on Saturn's moon Titan, and that no, we are definitely not alone in the universe. He says the reason we never make much contact is because these alien civilizations usually wipe themselves out before becoming too advanced. One good thing is that by 2250 he says that the life expectancy is 120 years old, and then goes on to say we can do better than that. See, I like an optimistic time traveler. Now at number 6 is the Park Man, and I titled it Park Man because this is literally a guy in a park telling his story and I have no other information about his identity. He goes on to share that back in 2004 he was sent to the year 2100. At that point he said time travel into the future was developed, but they had not yet figured out how to time travel into the past. Like many people on this list, the first thing he warned us about was the imminent doom that will be caused by global warming if we don't switch to clean sustainable energy as quickly as possible. He then went on to say by 2100 we have multiple bases on Mars, which is really promising to hear. He warns us against overpopulation just like the previous men did, but to combat this many people are being sent to live on different planets. He named Mars as one of them but didn't name the others as a precautionary measure as to not drastically affect the future. He said him as well as many other time travelers are in danger every time they speak out because people in the future have ways to eliminate all of them. They have ways of wiping them out completely as if they never even existed. He goes on to add that technology becomes so advanced to the point it's actually scary, and the second imminent threat to us after global warming is artificial intelligence. Go figure. AI in 2100 is smarter than any of us even dreamed to ever be, and it's so funny because even saying all this, leaders of the world are still barely doing anything to battle climate change, so against AI we really just don't stand a chance. Coming in at number 5 is the alien. A man or being named James Oliver insists he's an alien stuck on Earth and that he has no idea how long he'll be here for. He claims he's an alien time traveler from a different planet who's sent on a mission in the year 6491, but due to the super blue blood moon interrupting transmission on a ship, he became stranded on Earth. When asked where he came from, he doesn't name the planet but says it's further away from the sun than the Earth, so their years are a lot longer than ours. The only information he gave us was saying that the Yellowstone supervolcano is going to erupt very soon and devastate the whole of America. He says the amount of ash it will throw into the atmosphere will turn the world upside down. Our transportation mechanisms just won't be able to handle that much ash, so both our planes and cars would just cease to work. I have no idea what would happen if transportation became that hindered, like I can't even imagine it. But also, that was his only take on the future, and honestly, even I could have told you about the dangers of Yellowstone. Anyone who knows anything about physical geography could have told you that, so I don't know if I believe you, Mr. Oliver. At number 4 is Noah. I feel like Noah is probably the most well-known time traveler of this time. I feel like I've heard about him so many times, it's just not even funny. I saw the first video he was on Apex TV where he was very visibly disturbed whilst telling us about what was about to happen to us in the next few decades. And last year he came out with even more information, so thank you, Noah. Noah claims his present time is the year 2030, but he came back in time to warn us about the future, which all these people seem to be doing. He goes on to say he's actually 50 years old but took an age rejuvenating drug to turn him into a 25-year-old. He goes on to say he risks his life every time he tells us about the future, but still continues to do so. Our modern superhero. And these are some of his predictions. Trump will be re-elected, robots will run our houses, humans fly to Mars in 2028, the same year time travel becomes public. He said in 2030 the granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. will become president even though she'll only be 21 at the time. And the law is that the president must be 35 or older, but a new law gets passed, hence she's able to become president. Many were skeptical of Noah's claims, so he actually took a lie detector test and was asked questions about all his predictions, as well as things like, are you an actual time traveler from the year 2030? And every single thing came up as true. Either way, none of these years are that far away, so we'll soon find out if he was telling the truth or not. Filling our number 3 slot is Bella. YouTube channel Apex TV uploaded a video of a girl dubbed Bella who claims she met a Belarusian physicist who cracked the secret to time travel, which is not an easy feat to accomplish. She said in the time machine she felt a sharp voltage in her body, everything then went black, and when she regained her vision, she saw anarchy. He sent her to the year 3800 and what she saw were corpses upon corpses, ruined buildings, and robots causing the destruction. She even holds up a picture in the video that she captured while in the future. According to her, the blurry image shows a flying destroyed robot shooting lasers in front of some futuristic looking structures. Bella even claims she ran into one of these robots. She said, he had facial expressions, gestures. I want you to imagine a metal man, incredibly strong without the feeling of pity. Say no more, Bella. Say no more. Literally, because I already know who would win between me and that metal man, and I can assure you it would definitely not be me. Now at number 2 is 2118. In Feb of last year, a man named Alexander Smith came onto the Kyle and Jackie O show saying he was sent on a mission to the year 2118 when it was 1981. Alex claims he was part of a secret CIA mission which was so confidential he couldn't even tell his own wife where he was going or the fact he was going at all. He just had to go completely MIA. He said he woke up in a hospital bed because he was found on the side of the road passed out. Everyone was asking why he was dressed so weirdly because in that time everyone only wears white, which is really weird, I feel. The coolest thing to him was the fact that all roads were just massive sidewalks because all cars were flying in the air. He added that we can plug music directly into our brains with wires, and it's a type of music we can't even imagine. In terms of humans, he said he saw a woman walking with a man with no legs, so I think it's safe to say cyborg-human relationships will become totally common. He also said aliens visit us here and there but don't tell us, and said we already made contact with them ages ago, as in right now. On the bad side, he goes on to say the greatest threat to humanity is global warming. Do you hear that, Trump? global warming. And finally, at number 1 is perfection. A man claiming he's from the year 3000 tells us about a life that frankly seems too good to be true. He says by the year 2500 most human minds would have been reverse engineered and uploaded to a new digital reality, and so we all exist in a simulated environment. And these environments start off quite fake looking, but eventually get so realistic they're better than real life. So it's kind of like the first few simulations are like the graphics of a PS1 game, but by the end, as they get better, it's like the graphics of a PS4, that HD. He adds that in these environments there's no pain, there's no disease, there's nothing in there that you don't want in there. By 2600, nearly every shred of information is online, and giant computers take up most of the space on Earth. Real physical people still exist, but at a certain point they upload their consciousness and they can still move around in real life through robots. I don't know how that works, but I mean, I'm on board. And those robots also made superhuman abilities possible and available to everyone, e.g. me.
Coming into number 10, we have W Man. What does the W stand for? William? Wallace? Women? Oaxaca? Oh, only our British audience will get this, but I really miss Oaxaca. Get me some sweet potato tacos immediately! Tacos probably weren't a thing in 1940s Canada when this picture was taken, although I bet Mr. W has eaten a few, because look at him, he's a blatant time traveler hipster. A lot of people dub this guy the time traveling hipster, and he does certainly look like he would be better placed working in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, or Ubisoft. The picture was taken at the opening of South Fork Bridge, but it got the world's attention in 2010 at a photo exhibit. The guy is wearing sunnies and looks like he is holding a far more modern DSLR camera. Sadly, it does turn out that the letter on his shirt is actually an M for the Montreal Maroons, who played in the NHL from 1924 to 1938. So that being said, he could just be trying to blend in. Although to be honest with you, the rest of him's pretty standout. What do you guys think? Is he a time traveler? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Coming into number 9, we have Charlie Chaplin's time traveling extra. Take a look at this footage from Charlie Chaplin's 1928 movie Circus. If this footage was from the modern day, the first thing you would notice is that it's in black and white. You wouldn't pay any attention to the woman who is clearly on her mobile phone in the background walking behind a zebra. But this is 1928 and cell phones won't be readily available for another 70 so years. Even the early cell phones of the 1980s were chunky. This woman is clearly time traveling from the future, and judging by the size of her phone, I would say from the next millennium. This time traveler is caught on camera all the time. We have Nicolas Cage at number 8. Fun fact, Nicolas Cage has the same birthday as me. Second fun fact, did you know that the Academy Award and Golden Globe Award winning actor Nicolas Cage is indeed a time traveler? No? Well, he is. The actor uses a personally developed style of performance that he calls nouveau shamanic, which, I mean, sure. Maybe it's something that he's developed across the ages, as it seems that the film legend is indeed a time traveler. He's also fulfilled a lot of roles in history. Here he is as Mexican Emperor Maximilian I of Habsburgo, and here he is as an unidentified man from Bristol, Tennessee in 1870. The actor was forced to publicly deny it on Letterman. Spotted at the beach at number 7. So this picture here is a lovely snap of British war workers escaping the perils of their job for one much needed sunny day in 1943. The image was shared on Twitter and the poster was asking people to identify where the beach was. It turns out that the beach in question was Towan Beach in Cornwall, but more than the stretch of sand was identified here. It seemed that eagle-eyed viewers spotted a man on a smartphone in the middle of the picture. He could just be looking at something in his hand, but doesn't it look like he's on his phone? Honestly, to me it seems like he is so checking his phone. To me, it looks like he's just received a really confusing text from Bay and he's not sure how to respond. So phones feature heavily on this list, so do prepare yourself for more and even more shocking examples. But before we get to that, let me pose to you that Michael Jackson isn't actually dead, he's time traveling. Find out why I've drawn this conclusion at number 6. YouTube account Fact5 compiled a number of pictures that have shown the King of Pop popping up through history. So weird that this was never spotted until he died. It's like he's out there somewhere changing the future. Here's a painting of Michael from like, let's say the late 1700s, and then there's this Egyptian statue of him. Right. Roll up up for another iPhone. This one comes 60 to 70-ish years ahead of schedule. We have Henry Fonda's touchscreen at number 5. This clip is from the 1948 John Wayne movie Fort Apache, and there is a scene in which the character Lieutenant Colonel Owen Thursday, played by Henry Fonda, whips out his iPhone and goes over a list of names with his daughter Philadelphia, played by Shirley Temple. Check it out and tell me what you think. To me, he's holding that just like a slim iPhone X, although I feel like this is probably just a notebook. But it looks a lot like an iPhone. I don't know. What do you think? Coming into number 4, we have a time-traveling car. This time-traveling car has totally vexed the internet time and time again. This footage was allegedly caught on a Russian police officer's dashcam and features what can only be described as a time-traveling car. Is that the DeLorean? The footage starts as the car is turning left. We can see the traffic at a standstill, and then on the right, all of a sudden a car comes from nowhere. Like, seriously, nowhere. It's definitely the Doctor and Marty McFly. Oh, actually, let me slow this down for you and you can watch again because this is so crazy. Like, where did it come from? Time traveling! Uploaded by Rose Adams on YouTube, this video has been watched over 1 million times, and by the looks of the comments, a lot of people are just as confused as me. Okay, the teleporting or time traveling car did have me pretty convinced, although I am less sure about this one. At number 3, we have a time traveling hero. So this video was uploaded in September 2012 and has been watched a staggering 11 million times. In it, we see a super fast time traveling superhero come out of nowhere and rescue a guy on a motorbike who looks like he was about to be killed by an oncoming truck. Time traveler, teleporter, basically the same thing, right? Well, it turns out that actually this is a hoax, a viral marketing campaign for a Chinese game called Dragon Totem Girl. Wow. Okay, that may have been a hoax, but this seems very legit. We have this chatty factory worker at number 2. Watch out, here come the girls. This footage was shot in 1938 and is thought to be of factory workers leaving for the day. There they all are in their 1930s looking clothing, behaving as I would expect, until this lady comes along. Now to me, she very much looks like she's holding an early 2000s flip phone. I remember those. So good. Something really satisfactory about flipping a phone. Seriously though, look at her. What else could she be doing? She seems to be engaging with the phone as if she's talking to someone, and she's smiling but not at the woman next to her. According to a video that Danny made earlier about time travelers, in 2013, a woman came forward in the comments section of the video to say that she was the great-granddaughter of this woman. She says her name was Gertrude. She said that Gertrude was actually part of a science and tech experiment to test a wireless phone, although, like, really, there isn't that much scientific evidence to back that up at all. And since then, the comments section has been axed. What does this mean? Finally, coming into number 1, we have something strange happening in the background of a 1995 Mike Tyson fight. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Absolute smartphone alert. So this was a fight between Tyson and Peter McNeely that went down in Vegas in 1995. Yes, there were mobile phones in 95, but not smartphones. Smartphones only entered the market in and around 2007. Before that, phone cameras were total garbage. This clearly looks like a white Android phone from after 2014 with at least a 12 megapixel camera. We could only dream of 12 megapixels in the 90s. This footage is legit, and knowing our generation who can't be separated from their phones, if they were to time travel back to see a Mike Tyson fight, many people would be tempted to whip out their phones even if their time traveling was supposed to be a secret. Well, honestly, we caught you, mate.
Number 10, Sir Victor Goddard. This story really freaks me out. Sir Victor Goddard was a wing commander in 1935 and he was making a trip over to an airbase in Drem, Scotland. Little did he know that this routine trip would change his life forever. As he was flying over the base, he took in the rough condition it was in. The fields were unkept with grass cracking through the tarmac and cattle had begun invading to graze. Then suddenly the weather took a miserable turn, and in order to prevent an accident he decided to make for a landing at the base. But as he got closer and closer to landing, the rain began to let up and the sun broke through the clouds. Suddenly he saw a flurry of mechanics in clean and tidy blue uniforms working diligently on yellow planes. Usually the mechanics at the time formerly wore khaki uniforms, so the blue was a bit of a shock. Additionally, they were working on yellow planes instead of silver. Goddard left shaking his head to remove whatever fever dream he was having, only to revisit the exact moment when he visited the site again 4 years later. He saw the exact same thing, blue uniforms, yellow planes, and had to deal with quite a fierce bit of deja vu. Ever since this story came to light, it's not hard to believe he traveled into the future. Or back in time. Number 9. Greta Thunberg's doppelganger. What doesn't this girl do? First, she takes on the world's global environmental issues, gaining recognition on like every media outlet, and now she may be a time traveler. Social media blew up with the time travel theories when a 19th century photo surfaced that features Greta, or at least someone who looks just like her. It's true, the resemblance is astounding, so is this a case of time traveling, adventures, or just a common gene pool? Well, firstly, the situation of the photo doesn't actually suit Thunberg's environmental initiatives. The photo was taken in 1898, and the 3 children featured in it are sifting for gold, like Greta would ever be seen next to a mine. According to the University of Washington Libraries, the photo was also taken in the Canadian Yukon Territory, far from Greta. Greta hasn't responded to the fanatics obsessed with the photo, and her silence only feeds the theories. Who knows? Maybe she just has one of those faces, or maybe she was sent back to do more of her research. After all, Greta does seem to prove time and time again that she isn't your average teen. Number 8. A mummy loves some Adidas. Discovering a mummy is a pretty big deal in itself, but discovering one with some pretty sweet kicks? One of the most unique and oldest pairs of shoes were discovered when a Mongolian mummy was unearthed. Her body was found in the Altai Mountains in Mongolia, and on her feet were a peculiar pair of shoes. They looked like trendy Adidas shoes. Now they aren't actually Adidas, but they do feature the signature striped style of the shoe. After the restoration, it was revealed that they were actually a pair of knee-high boots with a striped black and red pattern. They also featured decorated buckles and leather soles. Our ancient fashionista also carried with her a clutch bag, mirror, comb, a knife, and a saddle with the remains of a horse. So lots to do. Researchers estimate that she died due to a blow to the head. Interesting. I know, this may have taken the wind out of your sails, but considering they appear so similar to today's designs, could it be that she might have gotten her inspiration from a distant traveler? A traveler who sported remarkable striped leather shoes and inspired the 1,000-year-old seamstress? Number 7. The Philadelphia survivor. The Philadelphia experiment is perhaps one of the most famous urban legends / conspiracy theories / actual historical event. For context, the Philadelphia experiment is an alleged military experiment that was carried out by the US Navy. In 1943, the USS Eldridge allegedly was made invisible and teleported from Pennsylvania to Virginia, either through time or parallel universe. What's the difference really? The story actually originated in 1955 when ex-merchant marine Carl M. Allen claimed to witness the event. He sent a book full of handwritten annotations to prove it, though it might be a hoax. Who knows? Did this actually happen? Who knows? But the movie definitely did, and it did nothing to help the conspiracy theories circling the world. But a man named Alfred Bielek found the film incredibly life-changing, as while watching it, he realized who he actually was, the lone survivor of the experiment. After seeing the 1988 film, Bielek's memories came flooding back, and he was actually Ed Cameron, and he had been born in 1916. So if this was real, it ticks all the boxes. Parallel universes, time travel, aliens, Philadelphia, science. Number 6. The Missing Hotel. This one gives me like Howl's Moving Castle vibes. Could be because I watched it recently for like the 12th time, so I don't know. But a building that's there 1 minute and then gone the next? I don't know. A couple traveling Europe had a unique experience, one they will never forget despite history seeming to. This story was featured on a TV series called Strange But True. 2 couples headed off to Spain in the 1970s to live their best lives, but time travel wasn't on the itinerary. They were on their way from England, passing through France when they decided to stop and search for accommodations. Everywhere in Montelimar was packed save one place that was simply labeled hotel. They got a room that was tremendously old-fashioned with no glass in the windows and no phone. But it was the breakfast the next morning that shocked them. The other guests were dressed in like outdated clothing, and their breakfast only came out to 19 francs, like which was way lower than what they thought. Hey, that's a win. They took tons of pictures of the vintage hotel and planned on returning next time they were in Europe. But the hotel disappeared. When they looked for the hotel again, it was no longer there, and no locals knew what the heck they were talking about. Even eerier, their photographs did not develop, like it had all been a glitch. Number 5. The bridge opening. Next up we have this picture. See if you can spot the one who is out of place. Found him? In case you missed it, we are talking about the gent dressed in the all too familiar type of like hipster style. He sticks out like a sore thumb with his thick black glasses, graphic t-shirt, and what looks to be some kind of hooded cardigan. This photo blew up across time travel enthusiast forums, like he's the ultimate hipster. The location of the photo was at the reopening of the Southport Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia in 1941. He also looks to be the youngest guy in the photo. Strange considering he would have been enlisted in the Canadian Army at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong. So why is such a young circa 2010 sporting gent standing at the Southport Bridge? Could it be he was sent back to document the event and was accidentally documented himself? Number 4, Andrew Carlson. This next one is for all my Game Stoppers out there who love that Robin Hood story. I did too. I really did. It sounds like Andrew Carlson pulled a Biff from Back to the Future though. Police arrested the 44-year-old in 2003 when he was somehow able to turn $800 into $350 million over 2 weeks. Like that's the damn dream, man. Authorities believe that he must have had insider help, which according to Andrew wasn't exactly untrue. Andrew told the court that he was actually a time traveler from the year 2256, and that is how he knew. Obviously, who the heck would believe that ridiculous excuse? But wait, it gets weirder. Andrew disappeared without a trace. A month later, a mysterious benefactor paid $1 million buyout to get him out. On April 2nd, Andrew was supposed to meet with his lawyer, but he had entirely disappeared without a trace. No evidence of his existence could be found before the year 2002. Andrew, can you come back and just tell me how you did that? That'd be great, you know? Anyways, number 3, put your phone away. When I go to my next concert, there is one thing I really hope I don't see. People watching like the whole thing through their phones while they're at a live concert. It just bothers me so much. Like maybe do it once to commemorate it, but not the entire time, dude, you know? Someone should have said that to this time traveler in the background of Mike Tyson's 1994 match with Peter McNeely. Check this out. Yup, right in the background is a smartphone, obviously, right? I still remember my mom having like a tiny screen dial phone well into like 2001. There was no way what looks to be a Galaxy phone would be around back then. Debunk this photo if you want, but if that is indeed a time traveler who was sent back, dude, time and place. Number 2, the Nazca astronaut. Out of all the items on this list, this is the largest example of time travel in history by sheer size. The Nazca lines are located 250 miles south of Lima, Peru, and feature over 70 massive depictions of animals that can only be seen from the sky. But the one we are talking about is definitely either a sign for aliens or time travel. Among the 70 images, there's a strange humanoid figure that looks remarkably similar to an astronaut. Some of the designs from the geoglyphs measure around 30 miles, and experts have no idea how or why these drawings were created with such precision. The astronaut is the strangest of them all. Kinda looks like not only an astronaut, but it looks like it's waving, you know? Weird. Was this an homage to a strange spaceman who came traveling and visited the people of Peru? I personally wouldn't be surprised. And last but not least, Edgar Allan Poe. This last and final one, I have to thank Olivia for like helping me dive down this rabbit hole because it really is convincing. I'm fully on board. So is she. So here we go. Edgar Allan Poe has to have been a time traveler, or maybe he still is. Either way, he must have had some sixth sense. Okay, so first off, he predicted the future. 46 years after Edgar published his first novel called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket in 1838, something weird happened. At one point in the book, their ship, Grampus, became stranded without food or water after a mutiny and must resort to desperate measures. The crew draws straws to see who would be sacrificed for sustenance. A boy named Richard Parker lost the deal. 46 years later, in 1884, the exact thing happens with the exception that the boat was a sinking yacht. 4 men were set adrift and forced to do the same thing, and guess the name of the boy who died! Richard Parker. Example 1. Example 2, 1840, Poe penned the story called The Businessman Who Endures a Violent Life After a Head Injury. He was hit in the head as a young kid, causing an injury to his frontal lobe, which Poe seemed to entirely understand in intricate detail. But the first time behavioral changes caused by this kind of injury were able to be studied didn't come until 1848. An actual neurologist, Eric Altshuler, wrote, and I quote, "There's dozens of symptoms and he knows every single one. There's everything in that story, we've hardly learned anything more. It's so exact that it's just weird, and it's like he had a time machine." Unquote. Point 3. Who is the figure who visits Poe's grave every year and puts a rose on it? Perhaps Poe is coming back to honor a past life. After all, Why is a raven like a writing desk? Because Poe wrote on both.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Moberly-Jourdain incident. This is one of the most famous cases of possible time travel, but it also might just be a ghost story? I don't know. I'm not here to tell you what to think, so I'll just tell you the story and let you decide for yourself. In 1901, two professors from St. Hugh's College in Oxford, England, went to take a little visit to the Palace of Versailles, which if you didn't know was the French royal home until the monarchy was abolished in 1792. That means that this was once the home of Marie Antoinette, and she was one of the last royals to live there before she was executed in 1793. So, on this visit in 1901 by these two professors, they're just walking around, seeing the sights, enjoying their time. As they're checking out the private retreat built for Marie Antoinette by her husband Louis XVI, boom! Out of nowhere, these two just see the Marie Antoinette sitting there, sketching away, dressed in 1780s attire. But not only her, there were a bunch of people also dressed in this same sort of way who seemingly just appeared out of nowhere. Just as quickly as they appeared, however, once the tour guide approached the two professors, all of the people vanished. The pair ended up writing a book about their experience, which was quite successful because of how grounded it seemed. Did they travel through time? Did they see ghosts? Or is this all just made up? In our number 9 spot today, we have the bookstore. In 1996, a man and his wife were out in Liverpool doing a bit of shopping. The man's wife went into a bookstore, and instead of accompanying her there, he wandered off down the street in search of a CD store. As he strolled down the street, he began to notice everything getting quiet. After this, he noticed a van that looked like it was from the 1950s that honked and swerved around him. At this moment, he realized that he was somehow standing in the middle of the street and that everyone around him was dressed in 50s styled clothing. Like anyone would be in this situation, he was super confused, and he went to head back to the bookstore where he had left his wife, but when he turned around, the bookstore didn't even exist anymore. Where the bookstore was a minute ago was now a women's clothing store, and as soon as he did, it turned back into the bookshop he had initially left his wife in. He was back in 1996 and could not figure out what the heck had just happened to him. After this whole ordeal, he also learned that the clothing store he had seen and gone into hadn't existed since the 1950s either. Whether this is a real time travel story or there's some sort of other explanation behind it, that poor man was probably absolutely terrified. In our number 8 spot today, we have Hutton and Brandt. In 1932, journalist J. Bernard Hutton and photographer Joachim Brandt were sent by the German newspaper to the Hamburg shipyard in order to do a story. Everything was going fine and well and normal and honestly kind of uneventful until things took a large, crazy turn. Both Hutton and Brandt realized that they were caught in an air raid and had bombs raining down around them. Brandt, like the dedicated photographer he was, snapped a few photos, but the pair quickly evacuated the area to get to safety. When they returned to central Hamburg all shaken up, no one believed their story at all. They got the photos developed in order to show their proof, but to their surprise, the photos showed no such thing that would suggest the story they were telling. With no evidence and no one around who would believe them, the pair had no choice but to just go on living their lives. 11 years later, however, Hutton was living in London and he opened up the newspaper one day to see what he never expected. The newspaper that day detailed the story of Operation Gomorrah, which was an air raid on Hamburg, and the photos in the paper looked exactly like what he had experienced 11 years earlier. Did these two somehow end up getting teleported to a time 11 years later while they were out doing that story that day? I truly don't know what other kinds of explanations there could be. In our number 7 spot today, we have Live Your Lie. A guy on TikTok who goes by the username Live Your Lie has begun to post videos claiming that he is a time traveler from the year 3036, and he offers his warnings to all of us. He tells his followers that they are as free as they will ever be right now, and that our kids won't even see freedom. He says, "So suck it up, because as simple-minded as your time period is, you got it pretty good, you just don't know it." Okay, Mr. Live Your Lie, don't absolutely roast us all. Anyway, when asked about the world population in his year, he says it's just over 2 billion people. He talks about something called the Big Blackout, which he says happens in December of 2052. He says that the Big Blackout is when basically everything goes dark for upwards of 5 years. The internet, the power, it all gets disconnected on account of what's called the terrors, but many speculate otherwise. He says that during these years there's riots, turmoil, and that it's just the worst of times, and that it takes 20 years for things to get fully back online. He also adds that in the year 3036 we still have zoos, but all of the largest animals are gone, so the zoos then actually just consist of animals like dogs and cats. I'm honestly not sure what to make of this one. Like, if he really is a time traveler, I appreciate the heads up on what's to come, but couldn't he have also said like one nice thing about the future? Also, if time travel exists in 3036, why doesn't everyone just head back in time to when things were good? I don't know, maybe there's some sort of reason, or maybe he's lying. I guess one day someone will find out for sure. In our number 6 spot today we have Sir Victor Goddard. In 1935, when Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard was still a wing commander, he was instructed to head over to an airbase that was located in Drem, Scotland that was inactive at the moment. As he flew over the base, he noticed it was in pretty terrible condition and that cattle had now begun grazing through the grass that found its way through the tarmac. Later on, as he was still flying, he found himself in a bit of a bad spot due to terrible weather conditions. To avoid anything bad happening, he decided to land at this inactive airbase and wait out the bad weather. What's weird, however, is as he got close to the base, the torrential downpour abruptly stopped and the sky very suddenly opened up with bright sun shining down. This was weird but not totally unexplainable, but what was unexplainable is that the inactive airbase could now be seen in full use and full of mechanics in blue overalls working on yellow planes. This was weird for a number of reasons. Firstly, he had just seen the base and it was not even close to looking like this, so how could this all have just come out of nowhere? The mechanics weren't wearing their khaki colored uniforms that were the norm then, and the Air Force didn't use yellow planes, they instead painted all of their planes silver, and there was one plane there that he wasn't able to identify or recognize. Sir Goddard left the situation completely confused and shocked, but that shock only got worse 4 years later when he visited Drem again. After the years that had passed, when he visited again, he saw the exact same scene he had seen 4 years before, like a full deja vu moment. Did he get confused on that day 4 years earlier? Did he fly into the future? Was this some sort of a Flight 828 situation? Unfortunately, there's a good chance we may never know for sure what really happened. In our number 5 spot today we have timetravel_0. Okay, so this is one that at the time was both one of the most famous and one of the most believed cases around. In the year 2000, an online thread began about time travel paradoxes on a forum for the Time Travel Institute. On the thread, a user commented on how a time machine could theoretically be made, and this prompted the response of a user whose screen name was timetravel_0, and they said, "Wow, Paul is right on the money. I was just about to give up hope on anyone knowing who Tipler or Kerr was on this word line. By the way, number 2 is the correct answer, and the basics for time travel start at CERN in about a year and end in 2034 with the first time machines built by GE. Too bad we can't post pictures, or I'd show it to you." Okay, so this is obviously insinuating that whoever the heck timetravel_0 is a time traveler. Throughout the next year, people continued to post questions and messages they had for this guy on that thread, and throughout time, timetravel_0 became known as John Titor, and he told us all his story in great detail. He said that he had been sent back to 1975 in order to bring an IBM 5100 computer to his own time, but he was just stopping into 2000 for a brief rest on his way back home. I guess time travel is exhausting? I personally would not know. He said that the reason for the mission to get the computer was because he needed it to debug various legacy computer programs in 2036 in order to combat a known problem where UNIX was going to have a problem in 2038, similar to what people thought was going to happen in the changeover from 1999 to 2000. There definitely are people out there who still believe that John was a real time traveler, so I guess I'll just leave this one up to you to decide. In our number 4 spot today we have the time traveling hipster. This photo appeared on the Virtual Museum of Canada website, and it was originally taken in 1941. The photo is said to have been taken at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia, Canada. At a first glance, this photo is just normal and that story sounds perfectly reasonable, but once we take a closer look, it is clear why this photo went viral. There's that one guy in it who isn't dressed similarly to anyone else in the photo. While someone with their own unique personal style isn't exactly an anomaly, Valley, it certainly is very weird and suspicious that he seems like he could be from our current times, which is exactly why he has been dubbed the time-traveling hipster. It appears as though he is wearing a more modern style of sunglasses, some sort of printed t-shirt with a cardigan over top, and it even looks like he is holding some sort of compact camera that wasn't exactly widespread in the 1940s. Maybe the time-traveling hipster really is just that, or maybe he really just was a guy from 1941 who walked off the beaten path so that hipsters today could run. I'm not really sure what to make of this one, to be honest. In our number 3 spot today we have Andrew Carlson. On January 28, 2003, Andrew Carlson was arrested and held by the police for insider trading at Wall Street. This was because of the fact that in 2 weeks, through the stock market, Andrew was able to go from having $800 to making $350 million. Yep, $350 million in 2 weeks. That is absolutely insane. When the authorities arrested him, they assumed he made his profits through obtaining illegal insider trading information, but when they asked him how he was able to do this, Andrew said that he was actually from the year 2256, and so he knew exactly how all of the stocks were going to perform. Obviously, no one believed this story and just assumed he was telling an extremely far-fetched lie, which in circumstances like this would seem like a pretty safe assumption. But get this, when Andrew was released on bail, he totally disappeared, and despite several attempts to find him, no one has ever been able to locate him. To make matters even a little wilder, it is said that he was also able to accurately predict the exact date of the US invasion of Iraq. Not sure how, but that's what the internet tells me. In our number 2 spot today we have Edward. Edward is a man who has claimed that he has proof of the apocalypse, and he even brings photos along to prove it. Edward first appeared on Apex TV, which I'll be the first to admit hasn't exactly been a source of credible information, but who knows, maybe this is the time that they got it right. Edward claims that he was part of a top secret program in 2004 and that he was chosen to time travel to the year 5000. This photo I just talked about is a photo that Edward carries that shows Los Angeles completely underwater. In fact, Edward says that in the year 5000 the entire world is underwater, but humans have found a way to live on the water. He claims it happened because of global warming and explained that there was just too much CO2 in the air, which step by step destructed the natural shield zone. I'm not a Photoshop expert, so I wouldn't even know what to look for while looking at these photos he claims to have taken in the year 5000, so you guys let me know, you Photoshop experts watching this. In our number 1 spot today we have Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, before I started making this list I was not convinced that time travel would be a possibility, but after making this list, I think I might be convinced that Edgar Allan Poe is a time traveler. Seriously, just hear me out on this one. There are 2 main examples why, and I'm gonna do my best to keep them concise. So firstly, Poe's only completed novel was published in 1838, and it tells the tale of mutiny on a whaling ship lost at sea. The men on the ship realize that they need to resort to some extreme measures in order to stay alive, so they begin drawing straws to see who they're going to sacrifice for food. A boy named Richard Parker drew the shortest straw, and therefore he became the next meal. Okay, so let's fast forward 46 years to 1884, and in real life there are now 4 men who have been set adrift after the sinking of a yacht. These men found themselves in a similar predicament to the novels, and I kid you not, they ended up taking the same route and elected to take the life of and then eat a cabin boy. The cabin boy's name? Richard Parker. Not convinced yet? Well, what if I told you that he accurately predicted a scientific advancement before it was even known by, well, scientists? In 1840, Poe penned the gruesome story The Businessman, in which the narrator suffers a traumatic head injury as a child and later lives a violent life. The weird thing about this story is that he was able to grasp frontal lobe injury so well before it was even a thing that was able to be greatly studied, as the first time behavioral changes caused by this kind of injury were able to be studied didn't come until 1848. An actual neurologist, Eric Altschuler, wrote, "There's a dozen symptoms and he knows every single one. There's everything in that story, we've hardly learned anything more. It's so exact that it's just weird. It's like he had a time machine." Maybe I didn't convince you, but I'm not gonna lie, this convinced me.